welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Now, Justice Chandrachud, Justice Bopanna, and Justice Pardiwala. The names of these three judges have gone down in history. And why do we say so? Because they have given the right of abortion to unwed women. For 51 years, this was a demand. And I remember recording a show very recently with three panelists who are also on the show today evening. And they also were hoping that there will be such a judgment. And indeed, it is an occasion to thank and also explain what the honorable judges have said. And may I welcome you to my panelist, Niharika Karanjawala from Karanjawala and Company joins me. Good to see you, Niharika. I have with me Ravina Lalit. She joins me also. She was also on the law show along with Niharika and Alia. Alia Waziri, advocate, joins me today. Good to see you, Alia, and requesting for some good insights on the judgment today. We also have a new edition this time. She was not on the show last time. She also joins Legally Speaking with Tarun Nangia on the first time. Shreya Singhal is on the show. You may have all seen her earlier, but she's on Legally Speaking for the first time. Thank you so much, Shreya, for making our time and joining us, and looking forward to some interesting interventions from your end. At the outset, to explain what this judgment is all about, may I request Niharika Karanjawala from Karanjawala and Company that in about the next 1 minute or so, to explain what it is. Niharika, last time, three of you, you, Alia, and Ravina, strongly said that you hoped that there'll be a pro-woman judgment. And indeed, you've seen this day. Please share your opinions with us.
Thank you, Tarun. Yeah, on a number of fronts, I think we can confidently say that this is a very pro-women, pro-rights judgment. And while everyone was very hopeful earlier that the judges would lead to a situation, the judges would create a situation where unmarried women had the same rights under the Act as married women to an abortion, the Honorable Court has gone even further than that. In fact, they have said that both married and unmarried women can enjoy similar rights under the MTP Act, and they've interpretation to the law. They have said that the term woman will be defined as anyone who is capable of being pregnant and may require an abortion, thereby opening up the definition to anyone who may require these rights. They've also said that incidences of marital rape will be considered a sufficient cause of mental strain insofar as the reason for wishing a termination is required. And they have also said that a woman's own estimation of whether she will be capable of carrying a pregnancy or not has to be taken into account given the facts and circumstances of her own case, not just from a generic perspective. So in every way, I think we can see that this is both a very progressive and practical judgment aimed at getting the maximum rights to the maximum number of people.
Thank you. Thank you for that opening comment. I'll go to Advocate Ravina Lalit for her introductory comment. You were hopeful last time that we'll see a pro-woman judgment. Indeed, very shortly this happened. This case went on quickly. There was this judgment. What are your first few words on this?
I think it's a very, very welcome judgment. It's gone above and beyond, just like Niharika said, than what we expected. The term woman has been defined very widely for the purposes of the judgment. They've gone forward to say that there should be forward-looking interpretation of these principles, and you must look at a legislation which is meant to be beneficial through the lens of those it's trying to benefit and in light of moving social norms and customs. I think interestingly, there's also a comment on marital rape and how women who are subject to that for the purposes of at least this act and judgment are also included within the scope and ambit of being able to avail this right. And I think above and beyond, there's a lot of emphasis on data, on opinions from doctors, on socioeconomic circumstances, which makes it very holistic and all-encompassing. So I think very well written and very, very well-delivered judgment, definitely.
Thank you for the opening comment. I'll go to Advocate Alia Waziri. Remember, Alia, when this case was being heard by the Supreme Court, you gave anecdotes from America and other countries, and you shared with the viewers why in India we also need such an allowance for women for abortion up to 24 weeks. What are your first few words on this judgment?
Well, like Niharika and Ravina have said, it's an exciting time. It's very interesting to see something like this coming up. And before I go on to say why, I just want to say something that this is gender responsive. We are moving from a history of gender oppressive laws to finally something that's gender responsive. Number one, it's also important to understand what is it that the judgment doing in terms of statutory interpretation. You see, the statute, what lies at the heart of this debate was whether women, regardless of their marital status, can access equality in welfare services regardless of their marital status. You know, there was a 20-week and 24 distinction, 20 weeks and 20 weeks distinction. Now, what the judgment says is that the statute never made the distinction. It is only the rule 3 subclause B, 3B, if I'm not wrong, was making the distinction. You know, every statute has to be compliant with the Constitution. That's just how it works in law. And similarly, a rule has to be naturally compliant with the statute. So what we've done here is you've read the holistic act and understood that it's just the rule that is making this arbitrary distinction, which is going against a group of women that it's ideally meant to target. The second thing this judgment is doing is it's identifying that women are not a homogeneous group. We hail from different socio-economic backgrounds. Our means, the means that Shreya, Ravina, Niharika, and I have in accessing welfare services will be vastly different from a woman who's living in rural Bihar. So therefore, we have to understand that a woman, unwed woman who for a variety of reasons, let's say she can't go to a clinic on her own, she has to travel, 16 hours or something to reach a proper clinic, or she has to get a male member of the household to accompany her to this long distance. That in itself may be the 4 weeks distinctions between 20 weeks and 24 weeks. So here you're acknowledging that our means are varies, and that is something we have to appreciate in terms of lateral thinking, in terms of progressive thinking by our courts.
Thank you for that opening comment. I'll go to Shreya Singhal. Shreya, you have strong opinions on many issues, and today is one such day in this judgment. What do you feel about this judgment?
This judgment could not have come at a better time for women, where the fear always is, and with especially the kind of judgment delivered by the US, the fear is that in the hands of men, what lies of a woman's fate? And today we at least are in safe hands, because this judgment, the direct consequences, regardless of your marital status, and that is even for, it's not just a woman in Bihar, it's a woman in Delhi to go to a gynecologist. The first question you get asked is, are you married? I'm like, what does that have to do with why I'm coming to you? I'm a woman. My marital status it is regardless of why I'm coming to access medical help, assistance, be it even for contraception. So the fact is that a woman who doesn't have access to safe access without being judged, having my dignity, my privacy of whether I have a husband or I'm divorced or not, I have safe access to contraception, which would be the prevention of what I am trying to do, but I don't have access to that. So that is the first and the most direct right that has been recognized. The second, the ancillary rights, is that a woman is not a biological woman. It does not matter how I identify. So the recognition of a cisgender, it's a very progressive judgment in that respect. The second thing is recognition of marital rape for my civil crime. Even I'm not even going on the criminality of it, but for my civil rights, you recognize that I have been raped by my husband. The third is my autonomy, that it is my space of mind, a woman's space of mind of how she will feel, not a medical board, again constituted primarily of men who are deciding on a number of 20 versus 24. And the kind of decision that a woman has to take between 20 and 24 on her finances, on the kind of emotional, mental strain of discovery, of what to do, of coming to terms with it. It is the entire 12 steps in that 1 week where suddenly you have to upturn your world to decide either way what you're going to do. So the fact is that you are giving legal backing to something that is so personal, so autonomous, so subjective to the person. That right is, I mean, it's invaluable.
Thanks for that opening comment, Shreya. I'll go across to Niharika Karanjawala from Karanjawala and Company. Niharika, in an urban India, for the first time, you're seeing millions of women coming out to work. Many are not able to get married, or for many reasons, or personal reasons, they don't choose to get married. And then, of course, there may be an issue of pregnancy, which they would want the autonomy to decide. They would want liberty over their own bodies. Could you take out some nuggets from the judgment and also explain what do you think went down the judge's mind when they took such a decision? Because at least in this area, we are one of the most progressive countries in the world. There are European countries in America, except for 2 states, not other states, their abortion laws are strict.
Tarun,
Something like this coming from our Supreme Court.
Tarun, you're right that this is certainly amongst the most progressive rulings that has recently come out worldwide on an issue like this. And speaking first about people in urban areas or in rural areas, I wanted to draw attention to some of the barriers that the learned court mentioned when they were getting into what the barriers to safe access to abortion are, because those are still some things we do need to get past. Now we have the law, we have the judgment, but the state has to implement it in a manner that actually brings the rights to the people. And 2 of the most significant barriers that the court made note of are lack of awareness and social stigma. And both these things all come down to education. Even today, even though we are celebrating this judgment here, there will be scores of women all over the country who have no idea that anything has changed in terms of what rights they have, of what options they have, if they have any of them at all, right? They don't have to resort to back alley abortions, unsafe abortions at home. They don't necessarily have to carry children that they are ill prepared mentally and physically to do so, only to bring those children into a dangerous and unstable world, right? So what is required to a great extent to get rid of both the social stigma and raise awareness is to reach out infrastructurally, educationally, and to actually get these rights meaningfully to the people. Like Alia said, what one has to take into account at every point in time is that Indian women are of a large and varied nature. Indian women are not all the same. They do not all have the same opportunities. They don't all have the same circumstances, and they don't all have the same options and choices. And the intent of their lordships here, I think, has been to bring that option, the option of that autonomy, to the maximum amount of people possible. They have construed the law and interpreted it in a wide way. And I've said this repeatedly, Tarun, I feel that when we're dealing with rights, that is the best way forward to go with any type of law. I've even said it with regards to laws on sexual assault. I'm against them being gender specific. I think they should be gender neutral. I don't think there is any reason to safeguard or gatekeep laws against people who could be potential victims of certain offenses or who could gain benefit from certain rights. So it's extremely heartening to see this kind of wide interpretation to it. And I think that is where their lordships were coming from, where they wanted to extend the greatest right, the greatest opportunity in this manner to the greatest number of people. And now how the state takes it forward in terms of infrastructure will also be a test of their abilities and their intentions.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. I'll go to Advocate Ravina Lalit. Ravina, if you could analyze the judgment for us in another 2 minutes and explain what, in your view, went through the judge's mind when they took such a decision? Because, see, it is all a reason to celebrate. What if this would have been delayed, not happened? In courts, delays happen all the time in this country. But you see how fast this happened. I think it was very recent when he did a show on this. And the court took it up. You have a judgment which is pro-woman. And millions of women have been helped today and in the future. Could you decode this for us?
So I think, as you rightly said, it's something that's happened very quickly. It's something where the turnaround time has been very swift. And I think that's to do with the the petitioner to begin with, the person coming in, and to recognize the urgency, right? Because every day that you delay passing an order or deciding the issue is a danger to her potentially. So I think that's probably the pushing factor, I would think. But I think the reason why the court's been very progressive, I think, is also to do with being conscious of, our responsibility globally, our responsibility locally, the duty that the state needs to exercise, and taking, that into account as well. And to keep in mind the general consciousness that's emerging within our own Indian, socio-political economic structures, as well as, global pressure in this regard. And I think there is an underlying conscious decision to not go the US way, and to show that, we are above and beyond and more progressive in that manner. I think there are even statements in the judgment which recognize that the family unit, for instance, is something that needs to go beyond how we, understand it in terms of our current social stigma and the way we think of family, mother, father, child, etc. And that we need to have a more expansive interpretation even to concepts like this. So I think those nuggets here and there, it shows how much more they probably wanted to do and, held themselves back on and limited to this particular issue. So I think these are things that sort of were in their mind.
Thanks, Ravina. I'll go to Alia for her comment and her analyzing the judgment for us. Alia, not audible.
I'm so sorry. The first thing I want to say, and I agree with everything that's been said so far by Shreya, Niharika, and Ravina, I think we are finally inching towards a voice and choice framework. What has been reiterated by this judgment is that reproductive rights fall within the ambit of dignity, and that is, I think, the most important thing we can acknowledge as lawyers, as even non-lawyers. It's something we can recognize. And the one thing that Ravina was saying, what was in the mind of judges, I think I said this before last time, that unsafe abortions are the third leading cause of maternal mortality rate in India. There's an excellent study by UNFPA that says that every day there are by Indian Express, that 45% of all abortions are unsafe, which end up in, because of botched abortions, women die. Now, that's a staggeringly large number. So we are understanding that, let's say for a minute, understand what's happening in America. It's not like women in America are suddenly not going to seek abortion. They will seek abortion. You can't outlaw a necessity. You can't outlaw a choice. In the absence of safe abortions, necessity will crave unsafe abortions, which is only going to bring you down in the gender gap, the gender report, which will only bring us down in terms of how we are faring when it comes to gender responsive governance. So I think it's a mixture of the voice and choice framework, the autonomy that has finally been granted. The judgment specifically states that you have to place a high level of reliance on the woman's evaluation of her mental status, what she is capable of. It is her I think the word used this is her prerogative entirely. It's her opinion of whether she chooses to abort the child or carry with the pregnancy or not. And I think that is remarkable.
Thanks for sharing all these diverse viewpoints and especially the implications. I'll go across to Advocate Shreya Singhal for her to decode the judgment.
So just picking up on what Alia said, it's the judgment uses decisional autonomy. That's the language that the judgment itself defines, that it is the woman's decisional autonomy based on her circumstance, whatever that may be. It's irrespective of a doctor to judge it, a medical board, or most importantly, a court. The woman is coming under whatever circumstances, clearly made up her mind that this is, and it will only harm her. She will have an unwanted pregnancy, the implication of that of a child, regardless of whether there is any fetal abnormality. I'm not even going on that. But to then 18 years is the investment that someone else is deciding for you. 18 years of a sacrifice that you may not be willing to make, that the child will suffer, the financial implication of that. And 18 is just that bare minimum, right? Then is it better that you simply, the alternative is that if there are no safe abortions, if there is no right for an unwed woman to have an abortion, What are the options that we would have been left with should this not have come the way it has? Adoption. You give your child up for adoption. There's a inter-family adoption. There is a big social stigma. Shadi kaise karegi ladki? It's as simple as that. And the emotional, consequences of that, which will mar the woman throughout her entire life to choose her life versus her child. And there will be enough pressure from every angle. So, that and especially what Niharika and Ravina said about moving forward with the judgment and the fact that it's come so quickly, it's been pronounced so quickly, shows the speed at which these kinds of decisions need to be made. Every day, women are dying because of unsafe abortions, and not legitimizing that right is one day lost, number of lives lost. 45% of all the women who died on every day will be because of unsafe abortions.
That's a fair point to make. Niharika, one quick question to you is, here is the concept of bodily autonomy was of course considered by the honorable judges, the three judges. And they would have come to a conclusion in my mind that, that women as such, they are subject to permission by others who are right to their own bodies. We are talking of women who may not be from the upper strata of society, and for them to submit to others' approvals at a time when they are pregnant would be excruciatingly painful and mentally harassing. So this decision was taken. Now, to get this thing implemented, do you think it's now up to the government to have a huge mass campaign so that every village the woman is, in a sense, aware of her rights? Because many times, many of our Supreme Court judgments don't get into people's consciousness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think it's important not only for the government to streamline information of this and information of the rights, but also to try and dispel the stigma surrounding it. Try and talk about how one ought to be looking to raise a healthy family. Start to talk about how these are not stigmatizing things. This is simply an access to healthcare question. This doesn't make you an immoral person or anything like that, right? And it is important now. I mean, we saw most recently, when the COVID outbreak first happened, we saw the way the government leapt into it with radio ads saying, sanitize your hands, wear masks, ads that came on before a call was even connected, right? Giving people information and things like that. And not only giving people information, but also sending the indication that your political leaders and the people you are looking up to think this is a good idea. When the government and political leaders, social leaders, people who are held in high esteem, this is why they bring on role models like cricketers, movie stars, musicians, things like that to spread the message. You are sending a message to society that something is all right. It is acceptable. You should remove the stigma you have about it because it is simply a healthcare question, right? And I certainly would love to see the government leaping into it and taking this kind of initiative forward, because it is essentially a healthcare issue. This isn't a moralizing issue. This isn't these girls lead unhealthy lifestyles issue. This is simply a healthcare issue. And that should be something everyone is looking to be progressive about and positive about. So I really think the ball is in the court of local and regional and state government at this point, and I would love to see how they take this healthcare issue forward.
Thanks for that opinion. One thing I must point out today is that my four panelists practice various aspects of commercial law, but when I requested them to come and join me on an issue concerning women, they all made time very promptly, which is one good thing about each one of them. I want to thank each one of you for doing that. I know this is what not you practice on a day-to-day basis, but this is something maybe close to your heart. So you gave me time for this show. And I would like to also thank all the judges, all the three judges, Justice Chandrachud, Justice Bopanna, and Justice Pardiwala, for taking such a progressive stand on pro-women issues. It sends a message across the world that what our Supreme Court is when it stands on gender issues. Thank you so very much. And I would like to thank my panelists for joining and the viewers for tuning in. Thank you so very much. Advocate Ravina Lalit, I want to know from you that certain important judgments of the court, this is one of them. In your view, how is this to be taken? Because you're talking of our population about 145 crore, at least 70 crore women are there in this country. It's like, so how do you get to people here?
I think, as Niharika said, it's so important, and the judgment also recognizes this, that we need to start from the very, very ground base, right? So one thing is, for example, highlighting the importance of sexual health education. That's something that we don't do. In fact, mental health education is something that's only very recently come within the purview of mainstream education. And that too is only prevalent in certain schools, societies, and environments, and it's not as widespread even now. So we need to have more progressive, more on-ground campaigns for sexual health education. As she already said, we need to be able to show, like the government has shown in the past, that you can campaign and get the message out, because it's not an issue of healthcare, as she said, it's only a healthcare question. But apart from that, it's also recognizing that, like any other issue where you would consider your own socio-economic circumstances, mental circumstances, you're considering your own circumstances even in this case, and you're making a choice that's best for you. We don't judge someone if they choose to buy or not buy a car, right? Whether or not they can afford it, whether they want it or don't want it, because it's their maintenance to do, it's their thing to keep. And similarly, I think here we need to just use that base analogy and extend it here and see that if we don't question someone for buying or not buying a vehicle, how can we question them for raising and keeping a child that they may not be able to manage and handle?
Point well taken, Ravina. I'll go to Advocate Alia Waziri. Alia, Shreya said one point last time in her last answer about questions being asked to unwed mothers the moment they enter a facility requesting abortion. Now, this judgment has come, but attitudes don't change. And it takes a lot of time, to even absorb such a thing and change an attitude. Do you think this will need some time? Because suddenly in some village in Uttar Pradesh or in some village in West Bengal or Chhattisgarh, they will not change their attitude simply because the judgment has come, because they may not be aware. Do you think that's a challenge here?
Of course, it's a challenge. It's a very big challenge. See, stigma doesn't disappear overnight. If it did, all four of us would be happier women. But it's going to take a lot of time. There's no way to sugarcoat it. But there are ways, as I think Niharika said earlier, there are infrastructural, institutional responses that we can leverage to change the situation. And I think she gave an excellent example of a virus. If we can do it for a virus, we can have sex education campaigning, we can have... there was a recent incident about, I think, the campaign on sanitary napkins and just the general awareness about it and how they are subsidized. If we can do it for menstrual health, we can do it for reproductive health. I mean, it's an easy correlation to make. We can do it for, let's say, if we can do it for having contraception, we can also do it for making accessible reproductive care. Yes, it's going to be difficult reaching the grassroots, reaching places where there is absolutely no knowledge, no tolerance for such things, but it can be done, it can be tackled. If we were to put our targeted institutional methods towards it, we have seen that we can do it, and we can do it easily with campaigning, with awareness, with going down to the grassroots, with having schools, teachers, colleges, doctors, all of them. It's highly possible.
Point well taken. Very, very little time. One last comment I'll take. Advocate Shreya Singhal. Shreya, your comment.
I just wanted to add on to this, that the general policy currently with, a real pushback on sex education in schools is that, it is abstinence. Or, and that is a folly, that's negligence to think that there is abstinence. And that is where the mindset will change. You introduce this, you remove the taboo, the stigma by teaching it to the children, by actually having, and the Act defines this, a registered medical professional in every Zilla Parishad. That gives the access to them, and you have continuous training of that registered medical practitioner. Otherwise, there is a judgment that they quoted Suresh Chandra. What happened there was that the woman she had to undergo an abortion. She died in an unsafe abortion during that process because the doctor she went to was not a registered medical practitioner. So there it's twofold. It is increasing sexual awareness and sexual health, making it mandatory as a subject. In that, the mental, emotional, all of that also to destigmatize it at a very grassroots and young age. Because at that time, when your mind is molding, if your mind is molded to a stigmatized, highly volatile, and a very traditional, straight mindset, then the change will not happen in that generation. You will have to hope for the next. And the second is to have registered medical professionals at every either a Zila Parishad level or a Gram Panchayat level, so that there is access to this healthcare. And to have this continual training. I mean, so many times judges are on leave because they are on training. Do the same thing for your medical practitioners. They have to be kept abreast with not just evolving medical, the medical procedures, but also the legal consequences. The laws change every day and they have to fall within those laws.
Thanks for that opinion. One thing I must point out today is that my four panelists practice various aspects of commercial law, but when I requested them to come and join me on an issue concerning women, they all made time very promptly, which is one good thing about each one of them. I want to thank each one of you for doing that. I know this is what not you practice on a day-to-day basis, but this is something maybe close to your heart, so you gave me time for this show. And I would like to also thank all the judges, all the three judges, Justice Chandrachud, Justice Bopanna, and Justice Pardiwala, for taking such a progressive stand on pro-women issues. It sends a message across the world that what our Supreme Court is when it stands on gender issues. Thank you so very much. And I would like to thank my panelists for joining and the viewers for tuning in. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.